mustachioed, and he bears a heavy load. He goes where he wants to go. That man is mustachioed.
Michael Van Runkle here for HotCars.com. Today I'm living the dream, and you don't even understand because I just drove my first ever Shelby Cobra. Let's fire it up. Doesn't sound that loud. Oh, but it's nice and burbly. I'm here with Rich McDonald of Superformance and Shelby Legendary Cars, and we're gonna take Superformance's Cobra electric prototype for a spin. Rich, thanks for joining me, and thank you for putting the fear of God in me, because this thing has 1,500 pound-feet of torque, and you can roast those rear tires with ease. So let's take it for a spin. I'm gonna try and be as safe as I possibly can.
Thank you.
In the meantime, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. Okay.
So, Michael, to start the EV car, always make sure the brake is on.
I was on the gas.
Not a place where you want to be at this point. We'll go ahead and turn the key on. Make sure your emergency brake is on, and it is. And then we're going to look at the control panel, but you have drive, neutral, and reverse. We're in neutral now, which is where you want to be when you're parked. To change it into drive, you make sure your foot is on the brake, and then you depress the D.
Couple seconds.
Yeah, let it go, and that should light up green, and you're ready to go. Now you want to take the emergency brake off, and make sure in this EV that you just breathe on the gas. If you hit it too hard, and sir, this is no joke, the wheels will just go right to 18,000 RPM. We'll roast the tires and we will be out of control. So
we don't want to do that today.
We don't want to do that. Until you get your feet under you in this car, just please breathe on the pedal.
Will do. All right, foot off the brake pedal, which is offset a lot like the gas Cobra, and then just ease onto the throttle or accelerator pedal, and you pull away.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, sorry. There's something wrong with the engine. I can't hear those side pipes. Driving the gasoline ICE Cobra was absolutely insane. It's like sensory overload the entire time. This, however, has even more potential performance, but you might have a little bit of a disconnect in your mind because it's almost completely silent. Now, coming up to this stop sign, we do have regen under effect, which is a cool thing that I always love about electric cars. The one pedal driving experience is, even if it feels like a golf cart in some cars, it's sort of cool to just be able to modulate one pedal. And if you were a real race car driver, you might have left and right foot driving going on. But, so Rich, why are you guys making an electric version of such an iconic ICE car like the Cobra?
Well, you know, we think there's going to be a market for it. Back in the day, you know, before Ford versus Ferrari even came out, our niche customer was someone who sat in a Cobra back in the 60s, or their neighbor. Yeah, my neighbor had one of those, and now they're in a position to buy one, and so they want a period correct Cobra. 15-inch tires, Shelby motor in it. That all changed with the movie Ford versus Ferrari. So that brought our product to tens of millions of people around the world, and they don't really give a rat's rear end about the history of Shelby American. They think the Cobra is a sexy car. It's typically now a younger clientele, and they want a Cobra, but then now they want it with 18-inch wheels. They want it to look more modern than the 1960s Cobras, and now they've moved on from you know, a Roush 427 motor to a Coyote 5.0. Now they're inquiring about an EV Cobra. So again, we know there's going to be a market for it, and so as far as we know, we're the first company to put a battery into a Cobra.
Well, it's pretty sweet. And so you've basically taken a Tesla P100D motor and dropped it in the rear of this thing. You can see it under the trunk with some nice high voltage stickers in the name of safety. And then you got an LG battery pack. Now, you told me this one has about 100 miles of range, but here in the transmission tunnel where an ICE Cobra would have had a transmission, You might be able to put some more batteries in. So from this prototype, where's it gonna go for the production version?
Right, so currently the prototype is going to give you about 95 to 100 mile range. When we go into production, we do have that extra space where the transmission went, so we can add a few batteries in there, some packs in there, and that should give us about 150 to 160 mile an hour range, which is very respectable.
And so you've got an electric car here, and everyone knows that electric cars are super heavy, but one of the best parts about driving that ICE Cobra is how lightweight it is, and that power to weight ratio of 500 horsepower to 2,400 pound-feet. How do you manage to balance that here in the electric version?
Interestingly enough, and a lot of people are surprised by this EV Cobra weighs about 100 pounds less than the ICE Cobra. So it's very well positioned with the batteries up front, the motor in the back. Currently we've got about a 49 front, 51 weight distribution. You can see very well planted, very well balanced when you drive it. The brakes are Willwood power assisted disc brakes. We've got 4-piston front, 2 rear, so it's already over spec to what you need on this car. But then you add in the regen, which you've already experienced, and you almost don't even need to hit the brakes.
Yeah, I'm only really putting my foot on the brake at a stoplight because that's what you do at a stoplight, and it's probably the safe thing to do because if you get rear-ended, you want your foot on the brake. Hopefully we don't get rear-ended in this one-of-one build, but you guys are going to start building these, I think you said end of 23, early 24, hopefully. Customers are going to be able to place orders soon. What's the price range going to be on this versus your gas cars?
Yeah, so the EV, when we go into production, we think it'll be around 200,000 with the extended range at 150 to 160 miles. So it'll be about 200K, which is very reasonable. For an ICE car brand new today, the next available build slot for a Superformance Shelby licensed Mark III Cobra is May 2023. So we're into 2023 pricing. Every year the factory will impose typically a 5 to 10% pricing increase to cover the costs and they go up.
Especially these days. Well, I'm surprised at the balance and weight distribution. The fact that you're able to make this lighter than the gasoline-powered car is pretty incredible. And then you talk about driving dynamics, and one of the advantages of battery packs, even though they tend to weigh a lot in cars like that Tesla, all that weight is down low, and so you get that sort of smooth skateboard feeling. And that's coming through in this. We don't have power steering, but like the gasoline-powered Cobra, the steering's pretty precise, and you just drive it like a normal car. It's light enough still that even at low speeds, you're not having to really put a ton of muscle in, even though you do have to put in some muscle. But that's part of the appeal, is that old analog style driving dynamic and experience that makes the gas Cobra so incredible. And then fans of the gas Cobra who want to experiment with some electrification can come in here, and you're getting a lot of the experience, even though the smell isn't quite there, or the exhaust isn't quite there in terms of volume, but you've got the style. Everyone is stopping to look, even Teslas, and the performance is definitely no joke. I'm still nervous. I'm probably going half an inch into the throttle pedal right now, and we're already at 40 miles an hour. It's just that instantaneously available torque where you feel it immediately. And so modulating the throttle, whereas in the gas Cobra, I can admit I was just punching it because I was having so much fun and shifting the gears with that forward canted lever. Was a lot of fun. This one is also like you can feel that it wants to go. We're on public roads, so I'm not going to do that today, but it is impressive that the driving dynamic, you can feel you're in a Cobra even though it's an electric Cobra. And another concern I always have for electric cars is the creaks and rattles are always super bad. But this feels really well put together. I'm not hearing like dash pieces rattling like you do on a Tesla. I'm not hearing a bunch of suspension clunking because there's no engine noise to overwhelm that sound. So what changes do you make to the sort of structure of the Cobra to allow for the battery pack placement and the Tesla motor in the back?
Yeah, so we contracted with a company called GoTech in Florida. They did the engineering to be able to pull the motor out and house a battery. There were some modifications done in the engine bay to accept the batteries and at the level they are in the engine bay. Not too much though, but you know, you're just talking a minute ago, it's really interesting that when you drive a Cobra, and you weren't noticing, right? You were in the ICE Cobra,
yeah.
You were watching the road, but everywhere you go, you see people look at you when you're driving a Cobra. It's very interesting when you drive the EV Cobra. You'll pull up to a stoplight and you see the normal looks, but it's more like a, what? What am I looking at? How come I can't hear anything? So it's interesting to watch people blow their minds to see a car that they know rumbles when it goes by to just whoosh by.
Excuse me, I did not just stall. That's not what is happening here. This is an electric car. And it's a lot of fun. And I think you mentioned even that you might be able to get a second motor and do all-wheel drive.
Well, actually, we are in the process of doing that right now with the Daytona Coupe. So we have the same company, GoTech, putting 2 motors in the Daytona. It's so you're looking at a 4-wheel drive. It's going to be an absolute monster.
We saw these cars in Ford v Ferrari, and it's ramped up demand, and you guys are doing your best to keep up with orders and build dates being pushed back. But so the partnership with Everati leading to the GT40, you said that the top speed of that GT40 is maybe like 150. What kind of top end are we looking at in this thing that I will never get close to on public roads?
Yeah, you're looking at about 160, 170 miles an hour in this car. We haven't really recorded it yet, but we're thinking a 0 to 60 speed is probably 2.6.
If you can resist just torching the tires, like
you got to know how to drive it, right? I probably wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to do it.
No, you gotta hook up and go. Like I learned drag racing in the Dodge Demon. It's really hard to get a good launch when you're driving something so powerful because the tires just go and then you're up. And with this one, you got all that torque at the low end. So it's gonna take you're almost gonna do your 0 to 60 time and your quarter-mile time without ever even getting to full throttle, probably. That's wild.
And you know, you mentioned Ford versus Ferrari. I think moving forward, I think obviously EVs are gonna be a big part of the future. We're ready, right? So we've got the Cobra already set up. We're doing the Daytona right now, and we also have the GT40. So I think we're ready for the future. And one thing about the movie is, you know, it has really brought a lot of people that had no idea what a Cobra was, and now they're aware of what we build. And it tends to be a younger audience right now that is calling us, and they're interested in EVs moving forward. So I think we're very well prepared for these iconic cars to now have EV batteries in them.
Yeah, and it's fun. Now, personally, I love the electric car movement, but I can't own one because I don't have a charger. That's probably less of a concern for customers like are shelling out a couple $100 grand. They probably have a house with a charger. But for me, I gotta have gas cars because if you don't have anywhere to charge an electric vehicle, it becomes a headache. And that's not what you want when you're getting an awesome electric Cobra. So that's one consideration as we move into the future is how can the infrastructure support fun projects like this that you guys are working on? And
we're ready. When it's here, we're ready.
You guys are ready, and you're sort of at the vanguard because more and more people who are enthusiasts in the car community are ready to accept electrification. Even a couple years ago, you got a bunch of naysayers who were saying, never put an EV drivetrain into a classic like a Cobra, but then you're getting a lot of attention for this exact build, which is exactly that. And so you're changing hearts and minds.
Yeah, the owner of the company, Lance Stander, has always said when EVs started to become popular, he always said that's never going in one of my Cobras, never ever, and he is just in love with this car.
Oh yeah, it changed his mind. That's funny. There is the famous interview with Carroll Shelby that was around 2010, I think, where he was talking about electrification being the future and how he was a little sad knowing that he was getting up in there in years,
Wouldn't be around for
that
it.
he wouldn't be around to see how far it can take us. And this is, we have to keep in mind, early on, this is what I tell people all the time, we're at the beginning of the electric car era.
No one was even talking about them really when he made that car.
Exactly. So think about how far we've come in 10, 15 years. It's been 10 years since the Model S rolled off the line. And think about how ubiquitous those are now and how everyone knows about Tesla. Everyone's keeping track of what Elon Musk tweets. But you can't deny that he's changed the world with electric cars. So I'm just glad to see the companies like Superformance are willing to go and try this out. And it's fun. You get the power, you get the sensation. And to be honest, as a cyclist, I kind of like hearing EVs go by. And I've developed sort of an ear for the sound. And this one has a little bit of that whine, a little bit of that futuristic like, which is kind of cool. But that's just my opinion. Some people will never be satisfied without an exhaust system roaring right next to their ear. That might be this guy. But for those of you who don't know, Rich McDonald has a little bit of a history with Cobras. He was actually in the movie Ford v Ferrari for a little bit, and his own car that he owns today was also in the movie. So Rich, tell us about your history, maybe a little bit about your dad, and about being in the movie Ford v Ferrari, please.
Yeah, my history goes way back. So my father was Dave McDonald, and he was a racer in the 1960s. He ran for Shelby American in 1963 and 64. He won the first race that the Shelby Cobra ever won. That was at Riverside in 1963. He also ran the King Cobra and the Cobra Daytona Coupe to its first victory.
Cool.
So he is the only man that can lay claim to winning the first races of all of Carroll's legendary Cobras. And again, his name is Dave McDonald. Unfortunately, my father was still racing for Carroll in 1964. He was on loan to Mickey Thompson to run. Mickey was running Ford engines in his Indy cars that year. And my father was killed in that race in 1964. So I was only 6 years old at the time. I was locked and loaded to be a race car driver myself. My mother, unfortunately, was at Indy that year. She was at the race. She was in the penthouse. You can Google Dave McDonald. It was a horrific accident, which she saw with her own eyes. She literally saw her husband burn to death. So right at that moment, she was no longer interested in having her son grow up in that environment. Yeah, so I grew away from the sport. I'm 64 years old now. I'll be 65 in a couple of months. I didn't come back into this racing environment until about 15 years ago. So now though, after a 40-year detour, I feel like I'm right back where I'm supposed to be. I get to come into our showroom with 100 beautiful, glorious, iconic cars that my father raced to glory back in the day. So I feel like it's where I should be. But yeah, we supplied 29 cars to the studio, originally Fox, and then during production Disney bought Fox, so we worked with Disney for the rest of filming. 29 cars sent up to Hollywood. We leased the cars to the studio so we could bring them back and sell them as movie cars. One of the cars that I sent up, I didn't own it at the time. I was the liaison between the studio and Superformance and Shelby Legendary Cars. So all the communication between us and the studio went to me.
Yeah.
I worked with the studio probably 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes multiple times each and every day. It was a full-time job, you know, growing it from just one hero car GT40 to 29 cars. But I sent 5 of the little MK2s up to the studio to be in the movie. One of them I had wrapped to look exactly like my father's car when he won that first race at Riverside in '63. That's the little red number 198 Cobra that you see at the beginning of the movie at Willow Springs. So I was on set about 15 or 16 times. I saw that little red Cobra going round and round and round.
And you had to have it.
Hours of film, and I thought, I gotta buy this car, right? When it comes back, it plays my dad's car in the movie. It's gonna be all throughout the movie. Look how many hours they're filming it. So I bought it. Then the movie comes out, and it's literally, you know, when you have 250 hours of footage in cans, and you got to cut it down to a 2.5-hour movie, everything hits the cutting room floor. And my car is in about 10 seconds of race footage, and that's it. It's in it about 15 other times throughout the movie where it's static.
Oh, no, there it is.
You got to hit the remote really quick and hit pause.
Yeah.
And then I played a Porsche driver in the movie, I was actually in 3 scenes. 2 of them also hit the cutting room floor. but I play a Porsche driver where Matt Damon is in the foreground and I am behind Matt Damon, and I'm walking around my Porsche and my mechanic is with me.
I'm gonna have to watch it again.
Yeah, we're trying to convince the scrutineer that the car is ready to race, and he's shaking his head and checking it off. So it was really cool to be a part of it, and really cool that Superformance and Shelby Legendary Cars played a critical role in that very successful movie.
And that sort of leads us back to these days, Cobras are flying off the shelves. And I'm sure that that's exactly what's going to happen with this electric Cobra. It's really awesome that you guys have built this, and extra awesome that you let me take it for a spin. I really appreciate you sort of coaching me through getting used to the difference between the ICE Cobra and the electric Cobra. It's an awesome project, and I can't wait to see what comes next. So thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure, Michael, to have you out. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
Great to see you.
And before you sign off, I hope you learned something today. And as always, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out. Thanks.